Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. This is a show that is facilitated by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network. The Clara Mohammed Schools Network is a network of 19 schools, full-time, part-time, weekend, virtual. I think I got all of them in there. But we aim to bring you topics that relate to things that will enrich our education for our children, things that will help to strengthen our teacher base, things that will help to strengthen our families and really push us forward with implementing excellent education in our environments. I am Sister Marsha Nivens Muhammad, and I'm here with my co-host,
Patricia Salahuddin. Welcome.
And Quran Shakir, welcome.
Yay. So I missed you all last week. Last week was a crazy time for me. I had like a million things on my plate, and I was in the midst of working on a proposal for one of my clients. So, but you all did an excellent job.
We missed you too, though.
Yes, for sure.
I was listening. I just wasn't going to be able to host, but you all did an excellent job, and I thought that was a wonderful topic for us to be able to cover. I know we talked about on this show different ways to finance our schools or help to support our schools financially, and that thrift store idea is, I mean, it's just not something that I thought about before. I think that was sort of articulated on the show as well. Like we wouldn't have necessarily thought, let's open a thrift store, but
right.
I thought that was cool. That's something that the school in Bermuda does.
Yes. Yeah.
So tonight we're back to accreditation, right? 2 weeks ago, we had our school in Nashville, Tennessee, talk to us about accreditation and their process, like them going through the process, right? They are in that space, in that moment, right? And tonight we want to be able to have that same conversation, but with another accrediting agency. So, Sister Karen, I'm going to let you introduce our.
Okay. Yes, I'm very excited about this program. And our school here in Atlanta has gone through this accreditation process with this organization, CISNA, and that's the Council of Islamic Schools in North America. And we are, in fact, about to undergo this again. So we do this every 5 years. Mm-hmm. But our guest tonight, alhamdulillah, is the executive director of CISNA. Her name is Sufia Asmat. And as you know, CISNA is an organization that advocates for Islamic schools and provides accreditation services and professional development to schools worldwide. Sister Sufia has served as the Islamic education community for more than 30 years, 3 decades. And she has served as a teacher, as a school leader, a leadership coach, and an education consultant. So we're very happy to have her. She's a world leader, I like to say that, serving on the Global Association of Islamic Schools, and she has been a speaker at national and international conferences, including the International Congress on Islamic Education in Istanbul, Turkey, and at the Parliament of the World Religions in Toronto, Canada. She is a board member of Weekend Schools Educational Resources, WISER, and she is committed to the improvement of Islamic education, Islamic schools throughout the world. And it is my honor and my pleasure to have Sister Sufia here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. That was just a very kind and generous introduction. Thank you so much. You really humble me. I do what I can, and I'm honored to be with you all because you're really the ones in the schools, in the trenches, doing the work every single day. And it's an honor to be with you. I really appreciate the invitation. Whatever I can do to help, inshallah.
So
I think
maybe
you covered everything. That was a great introduction. I think the only thing that I would add that's completely new right now is, my most recent additions to my work were WISE, or the weekend schools, because we realized that majority of our kids are in weekend school programs, or none or no program at all. The Global Association newly begun, established about 3 years ago. We've had
Mhm.
conferences. The last one was in Malaysia in October, and we're planning one coming up, inshallah, in October again. So it'll be like the first week of October, inshallah, every year. But this time, maybe either Sri Lanka or Istanbul again. We're not sure yet.
Okay.
Something that's brand new, literally brand new, is the World Islamic Baccalaureate, and the name is still not finalized. We're considering whether we're going to call it baccalaureate, but the most recent organization that's been established to help our schools throughout the world is focusing now on to establish a framework. You're familiar with IB, right? International
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this is going to be for Muslim schools, for Islamic schools.
Mm.
Framework for them to, for curriculum, what does a graduate look like? What can we do as a schools, to make sure that they're prepared with that mindset of focusing on the akhirah and focusing on their communities, which I know the Clara Muhammad schools are wonderful at doing that. And I really appreciate the visit that I was able to conduct at your school, Sister Quran, and be able to learn from you. And I do take it with me and I share with other schools the work you're doing.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So I just want to begin, if you all don't mind,
go
because
ahead.
I looked at a post. I'm in a group with sister school leaders, and Sister Sufia posted an important message that I would love for us to begin this process with. And she said, charter schools offer stable public funding, but may require adherence to state regulations that can limit religious instruction. Voucher programs provide more autonomy, allowing schools to maintain religious curricula, but funding can be unstable and subject to political changes. Accreditation serves as a mechanism for schools to demonstrate educational quality while preserving religious identity. It ensures adherence to educational standards, enhances credibility, and can increase opportunities for funding. I would love for us to begin to explore these concepts because I thought that was really important. And I thought it was important because so often when our schools are struggling, we hear them say, well, why don't we just do a charter school? And we think that that's the answer. So I love that you put this in here. And you mentioned that charter schools offer stable public funding, but come up with but can have limitations. Can you explain what kinds of religious instruction are restricted in charter school models?
So to put it briefly and simply, you would not be able to have prayer, for example, as part of your school schedule. You could teach the subject of religion as a subject, but not as this is what we do and we need to fast and we need to pray. You couldn't do that. You could teach Arabic as a language. You could use Quran as a text. You'd be getting around. You could still have a dress code and say, you got to, girls, whatever's after a certain age, you have to cover your hair. You could do that. You could say, wear loose clothing. That's but what you're trying to do so what we have to be careful of is we don't want it to seem that we are trying to get around being able to proclaim ourselves as proud Muslims. And if we go the charter school way, the way it is now, we're trying to get around it just to be able to access those funds. Some schools who I know of who are charter schools, they have a half day of their charter school. And then the second half of the day, school's out, right? But the Muslim families can send their kids, and then we teach the Arabic, then we have maybe prayer, then we have Islamic studies. So it's not part of the school day. And the kids pick up on this. I mean, what are you trying to teach? What do you tell? What message are we sending? So, I mean, this is my opinion, right? And this is what I've seen. Maybe there's another way to do it. And this is the other thing is it's different, especially now with all this talk about Department of Education funding being cut, programs being cut, moving from, federal funding and federal assistance to every state takes care of their own, every state does things their own way. That's already the case with voucher programs and a lot of other programs. You'll know if you get title funds, for example, it can be different in every state how they're handled. So even with charter schools, maybe there's going to be, and there's so many changes coming that we really have to be flexible. But up to now, that is what I have seen. That's my opinion, and it's based on something, not just I just thought of it. That if we want to be raising our children to be proud Muslims, Islam has to be everywhere. We can't be saying, well, because we're getting money as a charter school, we can't teach religion, so we can't, we can't have prayer during the school day, we can't have this and that. So the other way to go about it is support the school voucher program, the school choice program in your state, and it is different in every state. Florida, as Sister Patricia knows, very robust school choice program. But I remember being in Florida and talking to the woman, it was Barbara Hodges. I don't know, Patricia, if you know her from FCIS.
Mm-hmm.
She had said, there are schools, Islamic schools, who are relying on that funding, the school choice funds, and that can be taken away. That's depending on who's in political power. And then what's the school going to do if they relied on that so much and they kept their tuition low and they counted on school choice funds? So there's a little bit of, that danger as well. But definitely school choice is extremely helpful because the funds go not to the school, they go to the parents, they go to the students. And parents use them to pay for their child's schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So those strings are there as they are in charter schools.
Yeah, and I love that we started with that, right? I thought that first of all, Karan, I want you to share that with me so that I can see it, right? I have so many people that I've had this conversation with around like we're just trying to figure out the money piece, right? It gets so tight, and so that's the go-to to say, let's go over here and do this. So I love that we started there because it does give us a real clear understanding about, what we potentially lose, what sort of puts us in this space of insecurity around, is this thing sustainable or how do we sustain it? And that's really what we've been working toward in the Clara Mohammed Schools Network, is providing things and having these deep conversations about what will be sustainable for our school. So thank you, Sister Sufia, for elaborating on that. I want to know more about Cisna, right? So I don't know a whole bunch about Cisna. I don't know a whole bunch about you. I want to know about both so that we really get to provide some information that will help to, like I just said, sustain what we are invested in. And really, our Islamic education is an investment. And for those of us who are in the work, we understand that. And for those of us who are not in the work and have children, we are working so diligently to, ingrain that in people's minds, right? It's important. It's important. We want to be able to look 20 years later and see that little 5-year-old become, this person that is upright and is beneficial to themselves and those around them in their community. So tell us some more about you, or tell us about you in general, and then talk to us about what Cisna is.
Okay. Well, a little bit more about me is I was born in Pakistan. My father moved us to America because he wanted us to have a good education. That was his motive, as for many families, I believe, that came in the 60s, right? So I'm the product of a public school. There were no Islamic schools around. And in fact, my father, the town we moved into, a town in Illinois in the Midwest, right, in the suburbs, there were not even any other Muslim families. So my parents looked in the yellow pages trying to find Muslim sounding names. And they came across a newspaper article that some car accident, and the name of one of the families involved with the last name was Khan, same as ours. So he looked in the yellow pages and found them. And so they've been dear friends since. But we, and then when his friends got married and moved to America, for example, they're young couples, he told them, come live in this town. It's a nice, quiet, clean, whatever place. We'd have Friday prayer, but it wasn't Jummah prayer because it would be in the evenings, right? When people were home from work. And so like every Friday night, it would be at our house in the basement. And my sisters and I would take turns of whose job it was to clean up and to vacuum and make the tea and all of that. So that's how we started. And they eventually, they purchased, my father and his friends, they purchased an old church and converted it into a masjid and so on. So that's kind of a little bit about where I come from, having grown up, not having gone to an Islamic school at all. But when I got married, I was like, my husband, I thought, we can't provide that Islamic piece for our kids. We need to find an Islamic school. And even then, there weren't that many. So we moved to New Jersey and found a place close to a school that had just opened, Nurul Iman School in New Jersey. And that's where my kids went to school. My background, I have a bachelor's in political science and then a master's in business administration. So not an educator at all at that point, right? I volunteered at the school while I was looking for a real job. The school pulled me in and they said, we want you to teach second grade next year. And I was like, I don't know how to teach. And they said, no, we think you can do it. And so I got my certification. I went to school evenings and weekends and summers, and I got my teaching certification. Taught second grade, taught fourth grade, taught English because that was the subject I loved. Became a department head, a principal, and so on. And so, so years and years of being in Islamic schools. Joined CISNA with Patricia. Patricia and I were on the CISNA board together. And CISNA was working on different things, teacher training and so on. CISNA grew out of ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. That's who supported us. And that's how, and Sheikh Abdullah Idris, who's in Canada, he was a pioneer, for us as well, and a big supporter. But CISNA finalized the accreditation standards in 2012 in partnership with Cognia. It used to be called Advanced Ed at the time. So early years, we were a add-on. We weren't an accrediting agency per se. If an Islamic school was getting accredited through Cognia or Advanced Ed, they could opt in to the Islamic standards, which we had like 10 standards. We sent one person from CISNA along with the team who would kind of observe, in the Islamic studies area and so on, and look at those standards. And the report would be written by the Advanced Ed team, and we would have a few paragraphs about the Islamic element. But alhamdulillah, since then, now, mashallah, we have more than 50 schools accredited. We are a trusted partner with Middle States Association and with Cognia. We're recognized by New York's Department of Education, which is the largest Department of Education in the country. And so they acknowledge if the school is accredited by CISNA, then they meet that substantial equivalency requirement because they know that our standards are high standards and we cover everything now. So it's not just, here's 10 more things to add on. We cover everything, but everything through an Islamic lens. So we've developed an Islamic identity survey for different stakeholders. We ask the schools to make sure they conduct those. Elementary school students, high school students, parents, alumni, teachers, administrators, so that they can get, feedback from their stakeholders as they design their program. That's very important. We ask for a school improvement plan. And the 4 areas that we cover in our standards, the first one is governance. And there are indicators under that section. Then there's school administration. The third is teaching and learning. And the fourth is school culture and environment. So with the 4 standards, there's indicators under each, and the school is asked to respond to them. So kind of do a self-assessment, a self-study. I can talk more about that, but that's basically what we do is we provide a framework. We don't grade. We don't give you a ranking. We don't give you points. We know that you're in different communities. You're at different stages of growth. What we look for is that you're working towards meeting these standards. You can be in a spectrum, where you are, and you're working towards improvement. Even the school that's been around 30, 35 years has areas there where they can improve. So that's what we look at. Our team goes out there. The team consists of often someone from the CISNA board. I go to most of them, and then another 1 or 2 people, depending on the size of the school. And at the end of that visit, having read through the school assessment, reviewed their evidence that they provided, visited the classrooms, and spoken with everyone, we provide a really thorough report that identifies areas where the schools are doing really well. Sometimes I go to a school and they don't realize that they're doing some really great things. and they may not have systematized them. They might have put them in writing. They might not have created protocols. They might lose those things if those people who are doing them are gone. So we identify those and we say, this is really great. Make sure that it continues. So the report will tell the school that. And then we'll identify areas where we see that this really does need to improve. Please work on it. And then we'll give some recommendations, which is up to the school. Take it or leave it, modify it, because we're there for a few days. You know your community better. So those three things we identify in the report. And then, every year the school provides a report, a school improvement plan, and we're there to support. Schools reach out to me and say, hey, do you have sample bylaws? Do you have a sample MOU that we can sign with the masjid because we're on the premises of a masjid? Do you have a sample handbook? Or what do you recommend for this or that curriculum? So we'll help and we'll support. And our WhatsApp groups really are great because we don't have the answer to everything, but together we have the answer to everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. If you're just tuning in, you are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. Tonight's guest is Sister Sophia, and she is from CISNA, and we are talking all things accreditation. And for those who are watching us, if you have any questions, if you just want to shout out where you're watching in from, please feel free to put those in the comment section so that we can acknowledge you. So before my co-host asking other questions, I just want to throw one more in there, and that is, why accreditation? Why are we asking our schools to get accredited? For what?
Yeah. Do you mind if I share? I have
Go for it.
All right. Let me see if I can do that. I have slides that I can share. Let's see. Oops. Share screen.
Just let me know when you see it, because we don't see it yet. But
okay.
I
don't see it yet. Hold on. Let me get to my. So I haven't done the StreamYard sharing. So I'm seeing it on my screen.
We don't see it yet. Oh, you know what? Let me see. Yeah, I don't see it yet. Let's see.
What do I need to do?
Well, did you press present at the bottom of your screen?
I did.
Okay.
Let's see.
Usually I would see it in another box on my screen, but I don't, because then I could share it once I see it. I can pull it up separately.
I'm getting it says open system settings. Google Chrome would like to record the computer screen and audio. Let me just deny that maybe.
And we may even need that. I don't know.
Open system. I go to open system settings and it's saying what? Let's see. Goodness. Software update, which we don't want to do that either.
Right.
I've tried this before. This is what happens when you know, technology is great until it isn't.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but once we see it, we can go ahead and share.
So I don't know how to. Let's see. Screen sharing was canceled. Let's see. Let's try again. Present. No, it's not doing that. All right. I go to present and then it says slides and PDFs, video file, image file, share screen.
Yes.
So which one do you want me to click on?
Do you already have the presentation pulled up on another? Yes. Okay.
Not another, on the same laptop. I mean, I'm on.
Right. Do you try to share screen, and then you should see Chrome tab, window, or entire screen.
I see. Let me see. Share screen. Okay. No, I don't see any of that. I see something that says screen recording. Google Chrome app bundle would like to record this computer screen and audio. Grant access. If I go to grant
I think you may need to do that to present. I'm not really sure, because when I click share screen, I get almost like when you're on Zoom and it gives you options of what to share. I see 3 tabs. One says Chrome tab, window, and entire screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's I guess it's different from
Well, while we're looking for that, we'll go ahead and acknowledge some people who are watching. So we have Brother Anthony. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Anthony. He gives the salams to us. And of course, we have Imam Nadir. Imam Nadir, he sends his greetings and says, "May Allah bless you all for another great show, another great and important show." And he's always tuning in, so we really, really appreciate him. His school is the school in Detroit. So, I hear myself twice. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, his school is the school in Detroit, Michigan. Oh, we lost her. So she'll probably pop back in and then we can continue. I think she probably was trying to share and lost something. But yeah, accreditation, right? This is just like the world that we are aiming towards, or the goal that we're aiming towards. So I'm curious to see the presentation that she has so that we can talk more about why it's important, right?
That's a very good question. That why? Because I'm sure there are schools who are saying, "Well, why do we need to do that?" And to have an answer to that, give an explanation, would really help us to see the importance of getting certain things in place. It's not just being recognized by someone, but it's
Right.
really for yourself, to get things in place for yourself, the benefit that you're going to bring to your community, to your school, and to your community.
Absolutely.
I'm waiting to hear that, the response that she gives me.
Yeah. So I had run a adult training program for a little while, and even before I was in the position of leadership, I had worked there for many years, and we had accreditation, national accreditation for that career school. And I understand why, sometimes people are like, I don't ever want to do all of that, right? Because there's so many moving parts to it.
Yeah.
And it would also, for us, I know initially for us, it would create this anxiety, like, oh no,
Yes.
the accrediting
Yes.
agency is coming.
Yes.
And and we got to have all of this. But we eventually got to the point where we understood that process as helping us to get to a place of excellence. And it took those fears away, because it was like, here is what we have. And if there is something on the standards list that we don't have in the way that the agency is looking for, we know that the reviewers are there to sort of help us to tailor it in a way that will get us to the goal. But initially, for those who were sort of helping us to navigate the process internally, they weren't as helpful in not, and sort of quelling our fears. So we were all scared. And accreditation, I've come to know that accreditation that's not the purpose. It's not for that. And so, Sophia, as we were waiting for you to come back, we were like with bated breath to hear your response on the importance of accreditation. And then I just went into my experience with accreditation for adult education. But feel free to. Oh, I see your screen. Okay, I see your share. Oh, I see it. Okay, here we go.
Are you seeing the slides?
Here we go.
Tell me what you're seeing on the screen.
I shared your slides on the screen. You should see it too.
Okay.
Can you see us?
Yes. Okay. I was in a different. So, okay, great. So yes, so why accreditation is very important. So not only is it that to get that recognition, that certificate, that stamp of approval, but for the school itself, it gives you a lot of insight into what's going on at your own school, and it identifies areas for you to improve. So a little bit about, we already told you about CISNA and the partnership we have with Cognia in Middle States. And here, if you're seeing now the slides of why accreditation lays the foundation for improvement planning, right? It's a very powerful tool for driving institutional change, not just, change in this classroom or that curriculum and piecemeal, but the entire institution. And the framework that we offer, our standards, if you look at accreditation standards, and I say our because I'm talking about CISNA, but if you go through any organization, any accrediting agency standards, any of those standards will help you in terms of providing a set of criteria against which you can assess yourself. And then this last piece is really important. It is recognized as a symbol of accountability. And that, especially now with school choice and voucher programs and so on, people want to know if you're going to get money from the government, right, or taxpayers' money, they want to know what are you doing with it? So if the school where the money is going is accredited, then the public feels like, okay, they're accredited. I know they went through this process. There are standards they're working towards. So that's one of the things that's important. But why CISNA accreditation? That's a little bit different because you have a choice. You have there are some states who have their own accrediting agencies, like state accreditation. Then there's Cognia, there's WASP, there's Middle States. There's different accrediting agencies you can work with. But why CISNA? It's the only one that has Islamic standards. Now, some of these other agencies may say faith-based standards, but they could be of any faith, right? They don't look specifically through the Islamic lens, which is what we do, right? When we work with you with the school, and I know some accrediting agency may be better at this in terms of following up with schools, but we go out of our way to do that. We assign a team leader to your school, and it's somebody who will hold your hand through the process, first of all. So you don't need to be so stressed and worried when it's time for accreditation. Who'll work with you, who'll give you guidance. And then even after the accreditation, oops, sorry about that. Close that off. I don't know what happened there. We work with the schools to help them after accreditation too, to say, okay, so these were your improvement priorities. What do you need? How can we help? And I have schools reach out, but so it's a matter of the school needs to be proactive as well in terms of getting that follow-up, because I don't know what you need unless you ask me. But I do get principals calling me. I'll get parents even calling me and say, the school's doing this. Is that okay? And I'll say, calm down. Okay, well, we'll talk to the school. We have a process for that. So we do have a grievance procedure too. If a parent complains about something happened to the school, we'll work with the school. And we're there to support you. What happened? We want to make sure. And we're not the police. We don't, we work with the school. We work with the parents. But we say, this is a school of your choice. You're not required to attend. If the school has bylaws and handbooks, this is what you must follow. And we ask the school, whenever you make a decision, make sure you're following your own processes. And beyond that, we're not going to come in there and say, no, do this or do that. So we're a supportive partner. And this last piece, the global network, that's really been helpful. And I would encourage, I know, Sister Khan, your school is accredited. I don't know if your teachers are members of the WhatsApp groups, if your board members are members of the CISNA board member group. But we get in those WhatsApp groups, we have people we accredited 2 schools in Japan last year. We have a school that's accredited in Dubai. We have a school in Spain that's working towards accreditation. And because of the global association, the global network, we have people in those WhatsApp groups from all over the world. So you ask a question and you're going to get answers and suggestions from all over the world. So we need to get out of our bubble. And we think our bubble is our city or our town or state. It's not. Our bubble is the US too, right? So somebody in Nigeria is doing some really great things with very limited resources. You were talking about finance. You were talking about sustainability. Hey, there are schools in Nigeria and some of these countries in Africa with much less than what we have, and they're making it work. So you pose a question in the chat group and you'll get some great ideas. So that global network is another reason for CISNA accreditation. Work with CISNA, be out there have access to that group of people that all over the world that are doing great things. So some more benefits to the school. It's a time for self-analysis and reflection. Kind of forces you. If you're not going to go towards accreditation, you're just going to be year to year, right? Focusing on this problem, that problem, putting out the fires. No time for that 30,000 feet strategic thinking. But accreditation kind of forces you to do that. You have to respond to certain standards, you do self-analysis, you do reflection. And it helps you identify what your strengths and weaknesses are, and your documentation improves. And that's really important for sustainability. We don't want it to be that, you've got this great admin team, great board members. They're going to be gone maybe in 4, 5, 10 years. And then if they haven't put down systems and processes, you might lose some of the great stuff that's happening. So accreditation forces you to document everything, to have procedures and processes in place. everything gets aligned because we ask you to look at that. We say, what's going on in your second grade? Are they getting the students ready for third or for the next level of learning? However, you're aligned. Some schools do, there's Montessori programs. I've visited a school and they were up to sixth grade and it was all Montessori. And I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that before, but they were making it work. There were kids, in I would have said standard grade level 1 to 3, but they were all together, the younger kids with the older kids. Fourth and fifth grade students were all in one classroom and they were making it work. They were using the Montessori method. So there's a lot of alignment that occurs when you go through this process of accreditation. Your curriculum, your thought processes, how you coordinate everything, and using data. That's another thing. Accreditation kind of forces you to look at data because we ask you for data. We say, okay, you made this decision. What did you base it on? All right, you made this decision. You based it on something. How do you know it's working? How do you measure success? How do you know that this new curriculum you selected is really the best thing? How do you know it's working? So that improves as well when you go through accreditation. And the standards, just to speak to that a little bit. So as I mentioned, when we first started to do accreditation in 2012, and Patricia and I were on the team for those first few schools that went through accreditation. We didn't have a lot in terms of our own standards, but these standards have been developed. We have our third set of standards right now, and we're getting ready to roll out the next ones. And because we've learned a lot. We've learned from the schools we've gone to. We've had educators, not just the CISNA board, review the standards and give us their feedback, give us their input. And we've learned from the schools that we've accredited. What should we be asking? What doesn't matter? What belongs where? So these are research-based standards that support the school's success. And I mentioned already the 4 domains. I can share these slides with you if you'd like to share them out with your schools later. So I can send you the PowerPoint, inshallah. But these are the 4 standards that we look at with the sub-indicators in each one. So the governance is really important. In fact, CISNA realized that every time we went to a school for accreditation, almost every single one of them, we had to identify a need for improvement in governance. And if we get the board of trustees or board of directors, whatever you call your governance folks, if we get them on the right path, on the right track, they in turn affect everything goes on in school. They hold the money, right? They, in the end, they're responsible for the legal and financial survival of the school. And if they don't realize that they must put money into professional development, right, into budget for that, if they don't realize they themselves need training, they're not going to be able to drive this improvement for the school. So we've had 4 governance training sessions. We had one in Tampa, was the first one. Then we had one in Dallas. We aligned with Chicago at the Education Forum. We provided governance training there. And most recently, we had one in New Jersey. And we're thinking now again, maybe Ohio to have one. And we also did governance training in Malaysia. So that was great. We had a global audience there. So governance is one of the first standard. So effective leadership begins there. School accreditation is the second one. How is the administration involving stakeholders, which you guys do a great job of. I think you guys involve the community wonderfully. Like everybody is aligned. Everybody is on board at these schools from what I hear and what I saw at Mohammed Schools of Atlanta. Third standard is teaching and learning. And we don't observe teachers to assess them. We observe the classroom environment. We observe to see how the interactions are occurring. What role do students play? Are they in charge of their own learning? This is just a very brief outline here, but we look at a lot of these things because what we want is for the teachers to be guiding the students, not just teaching at them, right? We don't want it to be just the olfactory style of lines and rows of desks and the teacher on the stage saying, do this, do this, do this. But we want to see interaction, group work, learning to work with other people, being creative, having ideas. So that's all part of the teaching and learning standard. And then school culture and environment. We want to see happy kids. And for the most part, Islamic schools, we see happy kids. We want to see productive, relationships between teachers and learners and among each other, and community engagement and parents really being involved, because there's such a need to make sure that parents are strong partners. If you do what you can at school, but it's not being done at home, and if there's a disconnect, the child is not going to make the progress you want to see them make. So that's a really important piece of accreditation. Surveys are important. You've decided to open a school. What do your stakeholders want? Did you consult them when you came up with the mission or the vision for your school? And that can change too. When COVID changed everything, all of a sudden, oh my God, technology became big and maybe it wasn't before. So people had to, shift and so on. So surveys are important. Make sure you keep in touch, especially with this last one, alumni surveys, because that that is your product, right? That's the pudding, and the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the eating, as they say. So if you're not going to be in touch with alumni, not immediately right away, have that connection, bring them back to the school. When they've been out of your school for 5, 6, 10 years, then you can really see, you know, did it work, what you were planning to do? Are they doing what you had hoped they would do when they left your school? Because they go on to college, they're busy with college, but are they part of their MSAs? Are they doing any community service? So you need to know, because and have them come back and say, so now you've been gone 2 years, did you think that what we did for you helped you? What could we have done better? So alumni connections are really, really important for us. Data, how you're using data, and I already talked about that a little bit. I don't want to get into too much technical detail, but as I said, I'll share the slides with you. But a school improvement plans is also important, right? You can't go somewhere unless you have a plan of where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. And there are different ways. Every school can have a different way to get towards that end goal. The end goal is raising a human being. It's not about raising doctors and engineers and technicians. It's about making them good Muslims that are going to give back to their communities. They're going to give to their families, that are going to be family oriented, values oriented. So a plan is important. And then again, this whole thing, the accreditation piece, leads to continuous improvement because you're kind of forced to do it, right? Gather your data, set your goals, see what worked, implement the plans, evaluate. So that's the continuous improvement cycle. And that's what we're doing. We're reflecting, we're learning, and maybe changing. Change is not always bad. Change is difficult, but sometimes it's needed. And we see that now in this world. We have to change. These are just details of the accreditation process. When we do a review visit, we don't want anyone to be stressed. We're not there to, as I said, grade you or pass fail you or anything like that. It should be your everyday what you do. Of course, we clean up and we put on our best, just like we do when we have company, right? But don't change anything drastically. Be who you are so that we can come in and say, this is working, here's what we're seeing. But if you pretend to be something like, then we're not going to get a good, clear picture. So we'll do classroom visits. We talk to all the different stakeholders. More and more we're talking to alumni. Alumni are coming into the school in the evenings to talk to us or joining us through Zoom, the accreditation team, and telling us about their experiences and how they're involved. So it's very important for us to hear from everybody. We review documents. We look at, maybe old yearbooks, survey data, and so forth. So it's really an informed report that we provide to the school at the end. When we leave the school, we do a little bit of an overview of what we saw, but then you actually eventually get a full report, and that will kind of inform your next in-school improvement plan based on what the report we give you and the improvement priorities you might lay out. That'll help you to form, okay, so next year, here's what we're going to focus on. So that's what happens. Every year, the school, you stay a member of CISNA. You're invited to attend our events. Accredited schools do get discounts for our events, for our training and so on. And we ask you to provide us every year a plan of what you're going to do next and how you're doing. Give us some data. And here's how you can get in touch with us. So hopefully that's like a quick overview, not too long, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Absolutely. No, that was great. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And it lays down the framework for understanding the importance of accreditation, right? We always want to be presenting our best selves, right? And that process takes you through that framework takes you through that process, right? I have a question about when is the best time to do accreditation, right? Like how soon? We have some schools that are longstanding schools and kind of haven't, gone into that realm, and we have some newer schools or reestablished schools. Do they go for accreditation right up front, or do they wait 2 years? What's the standard practice?
It's a good question. I've had schools now. We have new Islamic schools opening all the time, right? We have schools that want to apply even before they open, which which is great because the good thing is you know what you're going to work towards. So you set up your policies, you set up your framework right from the start for where you want to be. We do require that a school must have been in session for a year before we'll come out and do a visit. So what we suggest is if you're just opening school, become a member and get the process started. You won't host the review visit until one full year has passed. But that first year, you get all our documentation, you get the standards, you know what you're working towards. You can start writing the report, you can start getting your handbooks and everything in order, and then you're ready. So year one, you're a member, you apply for accreditation, you get all the paperwork, you're assigned a team leader, and you have that support. And year two, like the fall of year two, you can host your visit. So that's the earliest that you can do it, and it's never too late.
That's very interesting. And Marcia took my question, which is great. I love it. We're thinking the same. The other thing, because we are a network of weekend schools and virtual schools as well as the full-time schools, is there a process to accredit the weekend and the virtual?
So for weekend schools, I'm on the board of WISER, Weekend Islamic School Educational Resources. I don't know if you're familiar. Patricia knows Najwa, Sister Najwa. So she and a group of educators in California and myself and some others, we established this organization, and we've actually developed certification standards, not accreditation standards, but certification standards for weekend school programs. So I would say reach out to them, the wiserusa.org. I can, if you reach out to me, I can give you the contact. But we've done that because there are a lot of weekend school programs, and we want them to have this accreditation standard framework as well. But we call it certification. We're not calling ourselves, an accrediting agency for weekend schools. Now, virtual schools, we don't do. CISNA doesn't have the capacity to accredit virtual schools, online schools yet. It's something we're thinking about, but we want to really establish and just become really strong with the full-time in-person schools, because virtual school is a little different. We didn't host during COVID. Cognia Advanced said they did online visits. We didn't want to do that. We just, we deferred them to the following year because we feel it's important to be in the school, on the ground, talking to people. Being on a screen, you don't really get a feel for it. So at this time, we do not accredit virtual schools.
Wonderful. And I love that there is something out there, right, for the weekend format, because we really do see those weekend schools being on this trajectory toward full time, and we have quite a few weekend schools. We term them strong in schools, right? But we have quite a few of those in our network, and we really do see that as being a springboard toward eventually coming full time. So it would just be helpful to already be in that frame of mind and practice for having a standard of how you operate with governance, with teaching, with curriculum. I'm grateful that that exists.
I have a question about the weekend school, because like you said earlier, we have more weekend schools and more weekend schools, and a lot of our children are attending weekend schools because, one, there may not be a school in their neighborhood or in their city, or two, their parent may not be able to afford to send to a private school. So they definitely want their children to have some exposure. So how many weekend schools are actually seeking accreditation with WISE?
This is new. WISER certification is brand new. We have 3 schools that are going to be our pilot schools, and they're
Okay.
working on becoming certified now.
Oh, okay. So it's very new. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
And then in terms of, okay, go ahead, Dr. Patricia.
Yeah, I was wanting to know about when you go to your schools and you have a recommendation for the school, you need to do this or you should do that. how do you follow up with them? And how often do you keep in touch with them to monitor their progress in that recommendation that you've given them as a regular school?
Mhm. So when we send them the report and it outlines, what we're looking for them to do in order to improve, if there's something that's severe, we might say, within 3 months you have to take care of it and send us evidence that you did.
Okay.
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 But if it's something that's going to take them a year to implement, right, to come up with a plan, we say, okay, now you've got a year, or depending on when, let's say they became accredited in June or July. And we might say, because January is the renewal time. That's
Yeah.
when they submit their renewal fees. And at that time, we'll say, submit your improvement plan. And we'll look to see, what are they doing to address the improvement priorities they were given. Now, this is where I said the school needs to be more proactive too, because and you know this, Patricia, with ISLA as well and with CISNA, our organizations don't have that kind of capacity that huge organizations like Cognia do. We don't have that kind of manpower to be like on top of you. We also need you to be asking. Ask me and I will help you, but I don't know you need help until you ask. So we're working on making that a more robust process, that monitoring part, where we will, assigning somebody to actually be on top of the school to say, hey, what happened? We told you to do this. How's it going? What are you doing?
Right.
That's something we're working towards improving and making it more robust. But we do ask for every year that we get a report from you and we have a plan from you to show, and we'll look at it to see that you're addressing those areas.
Okay.
One of the most beneficial things for me, when I was when our school was being accredited early on, maybe after the second or third accreditation, was for me to serve on a team.
Yes.
And I did a public school and I did a private school and I did an Islamic school. And all of that really helped me to be able to have an eye for our school. Does CISNA include other leaders to be able to participate in that process?
We do. We do. We're always looking for volunteers to serve on those teams. I have a list of people who have offered, and we're growing that team and growing team leaders too, because it used to be that I would be the team leader or someone, the system board members had to be team leader. But now we've got next year, we've got 30 schools that want to become accredited, right? Or had their renewals coming up. I can't do 30 visits in a school year. Our school board consists of principals. They can't take that kind of time. So we're trying to grow that team. And that's why I don't know if you saw recently, we put out we have a consulting position open for people who are familiar to come up with a protocol to train team members and team leaders. But we're always looking for volunteers to serve on teams. You serve on a team with me or with another experienced team leader, and then eventually, if you've done enough, you can be a team leader too and serve, have your own team and go to a school. But that's a great way to learn, great way to share what you've done, and a great way to learn from what the other schools are doing.
I love it. Thank you. And Marcia, I think had a question, but while she's coming back on, I heard you when you talked about the parents, the alum, the students, the teachers, and all of them. When we look at this accreditation process, then, and this is our schools, I think, have been reluctant to get involved in accreditation, not understanding the process. And so now I want to ask about how would a school get their parents involved? What kinds of things would parents need to do to be involved in that accreditation process?
What we ask is for the school for that fourth standard, school culture and environment, we ask the school to assign a group of people to each standard, to work on each standard, to write the response to it. So we ask that they get maybe PTO members or a couple of parents to work on writing that narrative. So that's a good way to involve them. And the parents like that too. They feel that they feel some ownership, right? And that helps them to realize, oh, this is something school is really doing well on, or here's some areas where we thought we didn't realize, but we could do this to improve. They might come up with ideas themselves. So involving them in the writing of that standard is very helpful. And when I've gone to some schools, they'll have the first evening we have a parent meeting, and we also take maybe a school tour. And some of the schools now will have the students from student council, some of the senior students give us that tour. We don't see the grown-ups, the kids take us around and show us the layout and talk about the school and, talk about what they do and so on, which is great great opportunity for leadership for them and to showcase for us, for the team, what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that idea of having the children. We went to visit schools when we were on our retreat for the Islam retreat, and we would visit the schools, and it was the children who were taking us around and telling us about the school. That is so inspiring because they are talking about it from their own experience, and you can feel the love that they have and the inspiration that they're getting from the activities that they're doing. It's really exciting to see them, to have the children involved. And I can see why that alumni is being a part of the stakeholders, as you note on the slides that you gave us, that they are some of the people that you interview, the stakeholders. And that's important because you get an idea of what this school actually produced. So that's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And I thought that having those student tours was really great because the students knew the mission. They
Yes.
understood the history.
Yes.
And so it wasn't like they were just, robots just going through a rote kind of, it was ingrained in their hearts and they knew it from a love of their school. And I
Right.
think that's important. That it tells you a whole story. And I'm saying that so that our listening audience will think, how do we engage our students? How do we allow them to be a part of what we do in the day-to-day of our school? And that, I think, is going to be what trains them to be leaders on their own.
Mhm. So one of the questions we asked at the student interview, say, why do you think the school opened? Like, what do they want? What do they want you to learn? And it speaks to how the teachers, how the adults in the school are including the students to really understand, why are you here? What is the purpose?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are just tuning in, and I hope you're not just tuning in because you missed some real goodies. Power of educating our own. Hopefully you hear me well because I see my screen doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But you are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. Tonight's guest is Sister Sophia, and she's from CISNA, and we are talking all things accreditation. And so as we wind down this conversation, I was curious to know, for those schools that are watching and are like, I need to get my accreditation act together. Is there a membership fee look like for the schools preparing to go through this process?
So to become a CISNA member, that's the first step. And the annual membership fee for a general member school is $200. It's really not that much. You become a member, we list you on our school as a general member. You have access to resources, access to our YouTube channel, some templates for, different kinds of documents and policies that are given to you. You can join our WhatsApp groups, all of that. And then you apply for accreditation. That is a one-time fee of $250. You apply for accreditation and you are sent a whole package that includes the standards, the self-study, the interview, the survey questions. We can send you templates for school improvement plans and all of that, and you begin your preparation. You're assigned a team leader who will work with you. So that's one time $250. The year of your visit, you host the team, so you pay for their travel. You pay for their travel out there, the hotel, and so on. And there's an $800 fee that is only collected during the year of accreditation, plus the travel expenses. So that's the expense. Once you're accredited, you're no longer a general member school, so there's no $200 a year, but the fees associated with enrollment. So small school is 300, medium-sized schools, which is 300 to 500 students, is $500 a year, and more than that is $700 a year. We may be changing that fee structure. The board was talking about it, but that's what it is right now, either 3, 5, or 7, depending on the side of the school. And that would be the annual membership fee for an accredited school.
And those numbers are reasonable.
Yeah, we feel they are. We want them to be reasonable. On the other hand, and that's why I was saying, Patricia understands, for organizations like CISNA and ISLA, we don't have any other income stream, so we have to make this work. I'm part-time technically. I do full-time work, but I'm technically part-time. And this is the first year we have now had, for 1 year, we've had an admin assistant. Before we didn't. So, and she's part-time. So, we have to grow ourselves too. So we're always trying, we recently got a grant from the Islamic Development Bank. And that helped us to provide the governance training. Otherwise, we couldn't have done it. And we still charged for that, but it was much more reasonable than if we had to cover all the costs of having consultants come out and do the training and all of that. So, we're always trying to find other ways to support the work we do, but we're trying to keep fees low, inshallah.
Yeah,
When a while ago, I remember when we would, when I'm saying we because I was a part assistant at the time, we would go along with Cognia, which was advanced ed, and so the school had to pay Cognia fee. Now, my question is that still the setup, or is it just Cisna without Cognia? And if it is, are you also still attached to Cognia? And do the school have to pay Cognia and Cisna? How does
Good
that work?
question. That's a good question. So it's up to the school. If you want dual accreditation, you can do the whole process with Cisna, but then you have to pay the membership fees to Cognia if you want dual accreditation with them. Or if you want dual accreditation with MSA, you have to pay the membership fees. The advantage is you don't have to go through their process. You can just go through our process. If you want just Cisna accreditation, you can do that too. For some schools, that's all they want. Then you just pay Cisna membership fees, go through Cisna process. If you want the MSA and the Cognia, because they've been around for much longer than us, some schools feel like, oh no, they have a better reputation, whatever reason it might be. It's not required by colleges, but if you want that, then you can just go through our process, but you would have to pay their membership fees as well.
I'm glad you say that. I heard you say that you don't have to have that to go into a certain college.
That's
Okay,
right.
that's a very important to know, to be stated, that you do not have to have Cognia or anyone's name in your school, behind your school, in order for you to be accepted into that school. That's important for parents.
And for those who are not aware, how often do you need to renew this accreditation? You may have said it before, but I just want to reiterate it.
I don't know if I did. It's a 5-year cycle. For us,
Okay.
it's a 5-year cycle. So every 5 years, you go through, you host the visit again. You go through the process of submitting a self-study and so on and submit that to us.
Thank you. And so for our schools out there, consider accreditation. It really is a benefit for your institution. You heard Sister Sophia talk about like continuous improvement. So, we're always striving, right? We're always on that upward swing. And so accreditation helps to do that for your institution, to get you to the next step and to that next step and then to the following step. And for Mohammed Schools of Atlanta, how long has the institution been accredited by Cisna?
It's been 10 years, more than 10.
For Cisna, yes. And we love to say that we were the first Islamic school in America to get accreditation. So it's been 25 years for us with accreditation. And for Cisna, we were among the early groups when we had the visitor who would come with advanced ed, which is Cognia now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that our listeners and our viewers knew that, right? So you're about to go through your third cycle? The third cycle. Okay. So that, that speaks to the work that we are doing in our community, and those who are in the Clara Mohammed Schools Network, those who look at Mohammed Schools of Atlanta as, sort of like the big brother, big sister in our education space, right? That, they've been on this trajectory for some time. And so for those of us who are working toward that, they're going on cycle number 3. So there's something about this accreditation thing, right? But
I like to say it doesn't hurt.
Right.
It's painless, actually, and it really is beneficial to be on that continuous improvement track. And I think that's very important for all of us.
Absolutely.
I would like to add some little tidbits of history.
Yes.
I
was waiting for it.
Yeah, since we're talking about the Clara Mohammed Schools and I don't know if Sophia was I know she wasn't around probably at the time. I wasn't around either. But the whole idea of having this kind of setup started with the Clara Mohammed school educators. And so CISNA itself was started with the Clara Mohammed school educators. In fact, Dr. Kadir was one of the first president of the board for the CISNA accreditation CISNA organization. He was one of the first. And Brother Ajib, you remember Brother Ajib,
I remember Ajib Bilal. Yes.
our historian. He
Well,
was
I'll be pleased with him.
yes, he was one of the forerunners of this
I mean,
organization,
yes.
and he was one of the people who came up with this curriculum. And I remember when Dr. Kim wanted to start it up again, he told me, he said, you need to find out from this brother where's the curriculum and blah blah blah. And so I went and looking for Brother Ajib. I never heard of him before, never met him before, and I got his information from Sister Tasnima.
Tasneem
Yeah,
Ghazi was on the board originally.
yes, yes.
Zakia Amin was also another one.
Exactly.
The original.
So we and Dr. Zakia Mohammed was also a part of CISNA, and they were like I said, it started with the Clara Mohammed School educators. It was their idea to get this going, and and Dr. Kadir was was the first president for the organization, the board of organizations. Yeah. So just a bit of information.
That's some great history.
Yes.
It is. It
Before
is.
my time.
Yeah, it was before Sophia and mine.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I learned about this from doing the research as I was working with CISNA. I learned about, and I saw video. I mean, like I saw videos of them doing presentations in California. It was just wonderful. I was just like, wow, I had no idea. And I had been working with CISNA for a very long time. And then when I learned that, I was like, whoa, I didn't know that history. So just wanted to share that with our audience and with you.
Wow.
Absolutely. Sister Sophia, are there any other things that you want us, or some last things that you want us to know about accreditation or about CISNA before we bring this to a close?
I think that we owe it to our families, we owe it to our children to become accredited, because it's a way to hold ourselves accountable. And Allah asks that we do that, right? We everything that we do is with ihsan. So we strive for excellence, right? And we make sure that we do right by our children, right? They're an amana. And I think accreditation is a means to accomplishing those things. So that's why I think it's important, not because I'm the executive director of CISNA, but because I see the value in those things, not accreditation per se, but the process. Even if the end you don't go through the visit, don't get that certificate, you go through the process. That's important. That's what we owe to our children.
Alhamdulillah.
I agree. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say beyond that. No, I definitely agree. Go ahead, Sister Khan, do you have something?
No, I was just saying that's enough. That is the period to the sentence.
That's right. Full stop. So this has been another episode of The Power of Educating Our Own. Tonight's guest is Sister Sophia, and she's from CISNA, and we have been talking all things accreditation. I hope you heard that mic drop that she gave at the end, and that, it's really about our children and providing them with what is best. Our children are an amana, right? They are a trust to us. And so we should be doing the very, very best that we can for them. And that I just love that term of continuous improvement, because it leaves you in a space of knowing that you're always striving, and there's never really I arrived, right? It's always like I was better than I was before. And that's really how we should be looking at our education institutions, right? What are we doing this year that we weren't doing yet last year that makes it better? And then what are we planning to do for the following year that's going to get us even beyond this point? So we thank you for being with us. We really appreciate all that you shared with us this evening. We encourage you all to to seek accreditation, talk to your administrators, talk to your boards, have this conversation, right? Figure out how you could do it. Perhaps you weren't thinking about it, and perhaps you didn't know the fees that were attached, or you didn't know the infrastructure for what accreditation looks like, and now you do. Have the conversation and figure out what you can put in place to ultimately get there. Again, this has been the power of educating our own. We will be back here in this space next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, assalamu alaikum. That is, may God's peace be with you. Peace.
Assalam.
Sister Clara Mohammed, a Black Muslim woman from Macon,